Bindlestiff Family Circus actually comes from the tradition of hobos. Bindlestiff is the stick in the bundle that hobos traditionally carry. It was a very popular term between the Civil War and World War I, when you had a lot of migrant labor and just kind of the economy like it is now was in really shitty position, that people jumped to the rail and started traveling in search of survival. So first of all, our circus really kind of grew out of that tradition. Our first round of entertainment was Stephanie and I hitching, jumping rails, riding trains, taking 20-hour Greyhound trips with our little satchel of personable stuff, a case of pyrotechnics, and a few other assorted props, and traveling wherever we thought we could find enough to eat. So just on a true, kind of my spiritual life direction, the hobo tramp character really fits into kind of what I've always struck for just in living. There were definitely a couple moments in my youth that I would say played very heavily on my future circus aspirations. Two moments. One is when I was, I think, like 8 or 9, my parents gave me an Emmett Kelly ventriloquist doll. Years later, it really got confused me, which may be why Kinkette came into being, of why you would have a ventriloquist doll for a silent tramp clown. But at least at 8, that wasn't really much of an issue. So that, I would say, kind of was the first moment that the whole just beauty of the tramp really kind of got ingrained in me. Then as far as showbiz goes, I was raised in Advance, North Carolina, and the small town, Mocksville, North Carolina, had this small, I think it was a Mexican mud show coming through. And, it was usual schlocky one ring, the beauty of it all right there, 2 days only. But they had an elephant dog that you could see for 25 cents. And, you pay your 25 cents, you go behind the curtain, and there's a shaved dog. That's the elephant dog. And it was at that moment that I realized you can shave a dog, charge a quarter, and make a living. And from that moment forward, I think showbiz was in my blood. When Bindlestiff came into being, New York was very different than it is now. We're talking, we kind of came out of what was happening in the late 80s into the early 90s. If you looked at the entertainment scene around here, Giuliani pretty much crushed everything that we knew, and we kind of caught just before Giuliani and then his fist coming down. Pretty much every place that I ever performed in the early years was shut down by him at some point or another. But you had venues like Save the Robots, Otter's Trip and Go Naked at the Pyramid, where if you showed up naked you could get in for free. Blue Angel Cabaret down on Walker Street, where you had this German accordion playing woman that oversaw the whole place, but you would have 2 or 3 strip acts, and then you'd have a 65-year-old Russian magician, and then you would have like a foot fucking scene happening, and then you would have another just kind of traditional stripper, and then you'd have me as a fire eater, and it really kind of mixed it up. And they had lap dancing when you first walked in. I mean, had the sleaze and the grit and real variety, all happening kind of in the same venue. And it took me a few years to realize you could do a show where everybody kept their clothing on, there was no penetration and no blood. Because, I mean, at that point, when you were dealing with in New York and society, this was kind of the heyday of AIDS. Heroin was back in vogue. You had many performers and just kind of lifestylers who honestly did not know if they would be living through the week. And when you're having that reality, the life force, the vibrancy coming out of entertainment, I mean, when you don't know if you're going to live to next week, you're going to give it all on the stage tonight. And you honestly don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
With Bindlestiff, you'll see the true, we do a true variety show. You may have kind of a drag type act, followed by a world class lasso spinner, followed by an amazing aerialist, followed by something kind of straight off the boardwalk of Coney Island. And from our earliest period, we've kind of kept that mix going. You'll still find the nature of grit that you're going to find in any American-style circus, or actually U.S. American. I mean, I think the French Canadians took most of the grit out of circus. Back in our early mid-20s, we were pushing the envelope on what was successful, what was out there, what you could get away with. This was the era where Chris Burden would be in a gallery and shoot himself, and Karen Finley is getting the Annie A totally pissed off, and you're having Annie Sprinkle, showing her innards through her twat to the entire audience, and this is what was getting people thinking. This was the art happening around us that we had to kind of work with, compete against, and be inspired by. And I would say that because of the mindset of America changing so drastically, to some degree, and the fact that, as I near 40, I don't really have to show my ass to an audience anymore. And now that we're doing youth programs, and, Bindlestiff has branched out in 100 different directions since then, and continues to grow at, kind of leaps and bounds. But, if you look at what happened in the U.S. with Pee Wee Herman, he lost an entire career because here was one of the best child entertainers who happened to have a healthy adult sex life, that he went into an adult theater and did what you do in an adult theater, was outed on it, and had his life destroyed because of it. And that, to me, was the moment where I had to kind of step back and be like, we have to kind of change it up, because America is not open-minded enough to deal with an artist being able to do amazing adult entertainment and amazing all-ages entertainment. So kind of the combination of getting older and America changing and looking at what's around us changing, we've gone to, I guess a bit more of kind of a PG-13 racing, still racy, still finding the innuendos, kind of finding that grit, but not as, maybe not as transgressive as we were back, in 93, 94, 95. When we first started, Stephanie and I started as a fire-eating duo working the nightclub scene of New York. Each year we would try, and at that point I knew how to do, basic juggling, basic passing, but skill-wise was simple. So, we learned to hammer a nail into our head. We built a bed of nails. She learned how to walk on broken glass. We had the fire-eating. So I would say our earliest show was a bit of commentary on kind of the politics, that we use clowning to kind of ask some of the questions and deal with the fact that, everybody's losing housing, just kind of the state of New York. But when it came to kind of keeping the audience, we relied on the kind of in-your-face sideshow acts. But over the course of, 14, 15 years of doing this, I'm juggling 5 balls, Diablo skills have greatly improved, and, our show, I think, still has the same spirit, has the same grit, and deals with social commentary in the same way. Mm-hmm. The big difference is you will now come see, world-class skill acts that 15 years ago we were a little rougher.